What is up, everybody? Sharp Angles podcast here. We're going to do a bit of a different one today. We're going to do a fun one today. I'm joined by Rich Hribar and the man himself, Warren Sharp, and we are going to draft NFL teams. We're going to try to get the most wins. We're calling it the win total draft. And we're going to, have some fun, talk about the teams, draft 10 teams apiece. There are going to be two teams left over. I think I know what the two teams are. I know what one of the teams are. It'll be interesting to see who that second team is and who's left over. But without further ado, let me introduce everybody. Rich Hribar, how you doing, Rich?
Ray, what's going on, brother? 2 weeks from tonight, there's going to be a football game. We just need to get through this weekend unscathed. And unfortunately, Thursday wasn't the greatest of starts with Jerry Jeudy. But fingers crossed that we can get through this last weekend of preseason games with no more injuries.
Why don't you hit us with a little bit of just, I guess, Jerry Jeudy analysis here at the top? I don't think we got any real good information on the injury. It seems like he's probably not going to play week one, but maybe he only misses a couple games. So just your initial thoughts on Jeudy and what we're doing with him in fantasy.
Yeah, Tom Pelissero dropped about 45 minutes ago that the anticipation is that he's going to miss several weeks. So maybe, I'm no doctor here, but it sounds like it's like a grade 2 or more severe than that. So what you're really worried about is not only not him starting the year, but like the reoccurrence rate with these hamstring injuries. Yeah. So if you happen to be more risk adverse and you want to buy that dip on Jeudy, by all means, but with it kind of being like a nebulous kind of area at wide receiver, I mean, I'm just probably going to take the healthier wide receiver and not really run the risk, since we already had questions on Denver anyways of their offensive. Was this going to be the year that Sean Payton got, Russell Wilson to calibrate his game? We'll probably talk about that because they will get drafted tonight. But if you look at Jerry Jeudy, when he was off the field last year, Cortland Sutton ran 183 routes with Jeudy sideline last year, and he was really effective on those routes. I know he's not your favorite player, but it does open the runway to give him some more early season viability to kind of outproduce where he was being drafted in fantasy drafts prior to today.
I actually ended up with Cortland Sutton because of how much you were in on Cortland Sutton. I thought, Rich is probably smarter than me. Not probably. Rich is definitely smarter than me. So I drafted a little Cortland Sutton, and that might end up working out. I think your point about just the range that Jerry Jeudy was going in is very flat. Like there's no difference between the wide receiver 14 and wide receiver 23. And so don't take a risk on Jeudy at this point. If you already have him in some leagues, you already have him in some best ball, that is what it is. But I think you're right. It'll be interesting to see. I mean, we don't have Tim Patrick anymore. We don't, we'll see what Jerry Jeudy, we'll see what this injury is. Greg Dulcich apparently doesn't get to play football anymore, doesn't get to play snaps. It's going to be interesting to see how that goes. But that's our fantasy. All the fantasy talk is now finished, Warren. So you don't have to listen to any of that nonsense anymore. How are you doing, Warren?
Hey, I don't mind it. Look, that's a great thing about this company. I've tried to surround myself with really smart people in their fields, and you two are among the best in the fantasy space. Love hearing you guys go back and forth. You guys have contributed to our futures package. Obviously, a lot of these players that we're discussing, like this information is not only useful for drafting, but it's useful for betting in the futures marketplace as well. And so, Ryan McChrystal, Rich, you, Ray, like you've all contributed to our futures package, which is up to over 30 futures. Just released a couple, posted a few on the website as well, up at sharpfootballanalysis.com. And I'm going to go ahead and use this opportunity to drop two codes. Well, one code and one reminder. Number one, if you want this book right here, which we all contributed to, 532 pages of love that's going to get you ready for the 2023 NFL season, unlike anything else out there on the marketplace, with 32 team chapters, get you up to speed on every single team, every single fantasy player that you could want. You can get this. Use the code ANGLES15, ANGLES15, the Sharp Angles podcast, ANGLES15. You'll get $15 off of this thing. That's going to save you a bunch. And then secondly, if you want that for only $1, we have a promo going with Underdog. Details are up on the website, but you can utilize the code that's up on the website to go sign up with Underdog, and you can get this book right here for only $1. So plenty of time to do that still. Highly encourage that. And you can also get Rich's draft kit for only $1 if you use the code at Underdog. If you don't want to do that, you already have an Underdog account, you're in a state that doesn't allow that, hey, go to the website, use the code August, and you'll get $8 off the draft kit. So give you two different codes to utilize on a couple of our products that we offer, as well as ways to get both of them for only $1. How can you beat that?
Before we start the draft here, there's a very important question in the chat, and this is from Jake. Jake asks, but is Sharp drinking while he does this? So that's the most important question.
No, well, I'll tell you, that is important, because sometimes that definitely does happen, especially more so in the off season. I actually have some coffee here. I was on the phone with a coach in the league that was spilling a bunch of lovely tea about a couple of different teams. And so I'm completely sober right now. I had to be attentive, listen, process, and then take advantage of some of the information that I've learned from those discussions. But no alcohol right now. Now, I will tell you this. The season is here, basically. We all know this. I wish that I was back at the beach, hanging out, drinking like basically all day long, because that's kind of what I did at the beach. Not enough to be like passed out or anything, but just like a nice little buzz for most of the day. That is fun. This is work, but this is what pays the bills. I mean, betting futures that are going to win, getting onto week one bets, in your guys' case, drafting the right fantasy teams. This is what's going to print money for us during the season and after the season is over, cashing in these futures. So less alcohol these days for sure.
Yeah, I think it might be more fun. It might have given Rich and I an opportunity. That'll be that's what I'm looking forward to. I have a feeling I'm coming in last here, but that's fine. That's fine. So what we're going to do tonight is we are going to draft NFL teams with the goal to finish the season with the most wins on our team. We're each going to draft 10 teams apiece. That means there will be 2 that will be left over. I am picking third. I'm the new guy. I have to go third. Those are just the rules. We don't know yet who's picking first and second. Warren, I think you wanted to rock, paper, scissors. Are we going to rock, paper, scissors?
Yeah, I mean, we might as well do something, either that or flip a coin. I mean, I don't know what's easier on the camera. Probably.
What year is it? Who has coins?
I don't know. I'm looking through my drawer. I don't see an accessible coin. I got bills down here, but let's go. Let's do the rock, paper, scissors, Rich.
Well, we used to do the so what we did in years past was the previous winner got to choose first pick, but that member is no longer with us. So I mean, we got a crapshoot here. I mean, I don't mind having the first pick if you'd rather have 2, but
let's like the
no. I think we need to
like the gambling
best of one.
Decide. Yeah, best of one.
Best of one. 1, 2, 3, shoot. 1, 2, 3, shoot. Best of one. Let's see those hands up in the camera.
This is what the people want.
Cheat. 1, 2, 3, shoot. Let's do it.
Wait. Start over.
Warren, come on.
You started counting before Rich and I were even like ready to go. So we're ready.
All right, y'all count it out. All right, here we go.
I'll count it. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Oh,
hey,
Rich. All right, you want 1 or 2, Rich?
I'll tell you. I'll take one. One. Because my analysis will be real easy, and then I won't have to talk about a team for 4 more teams. I will take the Kansas City Chiefs. They are very good for the football. That's really no. It's like no. When you look at the Chiefs, though, I mean, this is a team that has literally just racked off double-digit wins ever since Andy Reid has been there. Obviously, they had the best quarterback in the game. They're literally the best team to live bet now that I have live betting accessible to me. And I got to do that in the Super Bowl when they were down to the Philadelphia Eagles. And I got my first experience of betting Patrick Mahomes as a dog live and got to win money on that. So I finally got to make it what a lot of the public was reaping the rewards in for years. So I'll just make it real easy and take the Chiefs to open up.
All right, I am going to the other conference, and I'm going to go with the Philadelphia Eagles. The Philadelphia Eagles have an easier schedule than do the Kansas City Chiefs. They have more depth at the receiver position than do the Kansas City Chiefs. I think their defense is going to take a step back this year. I honestly do. I actually think that there's going to be some issues that is going to force that offense to step on the gas a little bit more longer in the games. But this is a team that I think is well put together, and I think they're going to be competitive with anybody offensively. So Eagles for me as my first pick, 2 overall.
So I'm at the turn here, and I have a really tough decision between 3 teams. And the reason is not because of how good those teams are. I think 2 of the teams are clearly better than the third. But one of those teams is an NFC team. And I don't want to give too much of my strategy away, but this year it might be the year to lean a little heavy into the NFC. However, I think I'm going to take the two AFC teams. The first one is the Buffalo Bills. I do think that their division is a real concern. I do. The Dolphins are a team that I think could disappoint a little bit this year. They have a tough schedule, especially their offense has a tough schedule. Their defense is probably going to be very good, even without Jalen Ramsey. But I look at that division, I go, it's probably going to be good. I still think the Bills are the class. I think their defense is going to be better, healthier. So I love the Bills. I'll take the Bills third. And then the fourth, I'm going to take the Bengals. And what I'll say is I don't think the AFC North is viewed maybe the way it should be in terms of difficulty with the four teams in that division. I think it's right up there with the AFC East. I think those are probably the two best divisions in football. But, I think the Bengals have very few holes. As long as Burrow's healthy, they're going to win a lot of games. And even if Lamar Jackson stays healthy all year, I think they're probably going to win the division. So I'll take the Bills and Bengals. I feel pretty confident about both of them. Now we're back to you, Warren.
Yeah, so I'm going to go a little bit more controversial here because I'm actually going to go with a team that is in the same division as the other team that I took. And I'm going to go with the Dallas Cowboys further down the board. Now, the Dallas Cowboys, I think they play a average, slightly above average schedule in terms of ease. It's also a very well-built team top to bottom. Their schedule does get more difficult. They do play, the Bills, who you've already mentioned. But I think this is a team that's going to be able to rattle off some wins here, and I want the upside in case they aren't a train wreck with Mike McCarthy now calling plays. I do not think this team leans as far into the run as previously suspected. I think, in my opinion, I won't say it yet. We'll see what Rich does here, but I think these are among the two classes of the NFC, and I want to have that NFC upside against you guys who are we've got nothing but AFC except for my picks. So there you go. Ray, I do want to ask, was this one of the teams that you were contemplating with regard to your strategy, or not really?
Hey, you said it wasn't the team, but you said, further down the board, I actually had them, I think, sixth on my list for the reasons that you mentioned. I mean, the team's good. The team got better with Brandon Cooks and Stephon Gilmore. This is a better roster than they had last year. A lot of the holes that they had, issues they had, they went out and fixed, assuming those two guys hit. And Rich and I have talked about this before. Rich will laugh at me. I am concerned about the coaching situation. Rich doesn't think it matters. Rich thinks that I could go out and coach the Cowboys and it wouldn't matter. That's how Rich views coaches. But I am a little bit worried about the going to the end there for you, Rich. I am a little bit worried about the coaching situation, but yeah, this roster is really good, and they get to play in the NFC, and that's a really big advantage at some point.
Yeah, listen, I was gonna take the Cowboys for sure. So getting kind of already early round sniped. I think the Cowboys are one of my favorite bets for the NFC. Where they're valued at. I think that they're drawing live to represent the NFC. I know that everyone will just say, well, Dak Prescott will mess it up and go to the same tired narrative. But I mean, they have a gnarly pass rush. They add Stephon Gilmore. They've got a great secondary. They've got one of the deepest, wide receiver units in the NFC now, adding Brandon Cooks and having Michael Gallup a year removed from his ACL. I think that also just removing Dalton Schultz and Ezekiel Elliott from this offense is a huge plus. And I know Mike McCarthy has kind of said they want to run the football, but I mean, when you look at this team from a top-down stance, like this is an 11 personnel team. Like this team is made to spread teams out. They've got Tony Pollard out of the backfield here. You add a guy like Deuce Vaughn to kind of get like that 4 to 8 touches, almost like a young Darren Sproles. Maybe he's exciting like that. But I think the Cowboys are going to be very good. I'm actually pretty bummed. I didn't think that Warren was going to take them there. So I will just stay in the NFC, and I assume I will take one of the teams Ray was going to take, and I'll take the 49ers, who I don't particularly like. I have concerns with the 49ers, but I want to do kind of what everyone is kind of doing, draft NFC teams. And take our bullets there. I still think that they're definitely the best roster in that division as well. When we look at the Rams, kind of resetting their table here, Arizona is definitely in a rebuild year, and I do like Seattle. We'll see where they go here, but I'm a little concerned about just this transition. What are we going to get out of Brock Purdy? We've seen this system in general has made quarterbacks look good against subpar competition before, and we've seen that Kyle Shanahan has kind of maxed this scheme out and and he's maxed it out very well. They've almost won a Super Bowl with it. But is Purdy just like an extension of all these quarterbacks that have been in the system prior? Or can he kind of create and punch, his way out of situations when the 49ers need them to, and the scheme isn't doing all the lifting for them? We saw against the Cowboys last year in the playoffs, like Brock Purdy looked pretty average in that game, and we saw some of the warts when he finally faced a pass rush. I'm really bummed we didn't get to see him play that game against the Eagles to build up maybe a larger sample. But I do have some concerns there. We'll see, like, if Darnold ends up playing at some point. I'm also concerned that the 49ers have literally the worst rest edge in the NFL, right? Like, they're minus 20 in terms of, overall cumulative rest this season. But so we're just trying to weigh all this in with an NFC team with high odds. I'm just kind of following the win total odds. And then
Rich, I'm going to jump in on the 49ers for a second and just say, like, all of your concerns are completely well-founded, and I concur wholeheartedly. This is a team that I wanted to try to figure out ways in the NFC when I was looking at betting futures to bet around. Like, if the 49ers run the table and they go, that's fine. But, like, I'm going to take the upside that the 49ers aren't even going to be in the conversation, because when the wheels go off, the 49ers, they really go off from a season. Like, this is not a team that historically, no, it could this year, you never know. But, like, they're not winning like 9-10 games and being okay. They're either crushing it or they're struggling. And they do play a more difficult schedule. Although you look at some of the teams that they're playing, like the outside of their division, the Vikings and the Bucks, like, both of these teams overperformed last year, probably are due to underperform a little bit more this upcoming season. But difficult AFC North, difficult NFC East. They get a team that's probably going to be drafted in not too soon, which is the Jaguars. I just think that though their division is definitely softer, like, they might be in a battle to even win the NFC West this year, potentially. So don't disagree there at all.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think, Rich, you kind of brought up the Purdy thing that we don't have the sample. And I think I stole this stat from you. His win pressured stats last year were very concerning. When pressured last year, he had a 47.7% completion rate, and he was inaccurate on 21.5% of his attempts. Now, he was a 7th-round rookie thrust into the starting lineup unexpectedly. So, will we see him grow? Certainly. But the 49ers are a top 1, top 2 roster if quarterback's taken out of the equation. And so if Purdy can just be fine, then they're going to be fine. Their weapons are maybe the best in the league, probably the best in the league. But there at least has to be some concern about this team.
Yeah, and I think that's where we are from the NFL, right? Like, we're just at that point of the draft. There's probably the main 4 teams we feel the most confident. I think that went 4 overall, and then we can start to poke holes in everybody from kind of here on out, right? I think that's kind of where we are. Yeah. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to take the team Warren brought up. Kind of just following win totals here a little bit. And I'm going to take the Jaguars just because I believe in the quarterback and I believe in the soft division that they play in. I believe in the way they finished the season last year was extremely strong. Obviously, the coaching changes they made last year were a significance as the season wore on. So that's really kind of it. I'm just looking at the quarterback ascending, the schedule, and going there. Obviously, I have concerns about the Jaguars as well. I think their offensive line could be the 2nd worst in the NFL if it wasn't for a team in their division. So I do have some concerns there, but I do think they're just going to throw the F out of the football this year, man. Like, they are just going to wing it. I don't think they're going to line up and be able to really run on anybody, but you add Calvin Ridley to Zay Jones, Christian Kirk, and Evan Ingram. I just think it's going to be a big Trevor Lawrence season. I think Trevor Lawrence MVP odds is kind of fun this year.
Yeah, I'll add to that. Sorry, Ray. Then I'll let you go on this. But my thought was, I just tweeted out your article, Ray, that you wrote, yesterday, I think, on the Jacksonville Jaguars fantasy preview. And what I noted is that this team's defense was like 26th in efficiency last year, despite playing one of the easiest schedules in the NFL and despite being like the 3rd healthiest team. And so they're going to be forced. They gave up, I think, 31 points per game anytime that they played an offense that ranked average to above average. So to Rich's point, like, this is a great opportunity if you're playing fantasy to go after a guy like a Trevor Lawrence, because they are going to have to be scoring points when they're going up against any just offense that's competent, they're going to have to score points because I do not have a lot of confidence in their defense. I do not have a belief that they got substantially better on that side of the ball. They might regress from an injury luck perspective, and I think this offense is going to have to pick up the slack. What do you think, Ray?
Yeah, and I think, to kind of further that point, the difference between Trevor Lawrence under Urban Meyer and Trevor Lawrence last year was substantial. And I have it kind of in a table in my article that you mentioned, the Jaguars fantasy preview. But if you look at his completion rate, his yards per attempt, his touchdown rate, all of it was just massive improvement. His EPA per dropback, it was just massive improvement. And now we're adding Calvin Ridley to the equation. And so I think that it could be a really big year for Trevor Lawrence. We've talked about Lawrence's over on his passing yards, which is something that, that I'm really into this year. And so all of it's really good for fantasy, but for these purposes, is that defense good enough? Is that offensive line good enough? Does it really matter because of the division they play in? Will that get exploited until they even get to the playoffs? So they're an interesting team for sure in this conversation.
Now I'm torn on this next one. I'll tell you, it's my pick, and I'm torn on which team I'm going to go with. I think I'm going to go with the Baltimore Ravens.
Here you go.
I'm sorry, I take that back. Does it count? Does it count, or can I take it back?
Was your hand off the piece? That's the question.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, my hand's in the air, definitely. Like I don't care.
I mean, you are the Ravens guy on the show, man. Are you going to add to them?
So I'm going to go conspiracy style here. I'm going conspiracy style. I have enough concerns about the Ravens defense this year. I think their offense is going to be substantially better. But I'm going to go with what I think is a team that is set up on the back half of the schedule to win a bunch of games, and a league that really wants to see this team make the playoffs. And as a result, I'm going with the New York Jets. And it's because the Jets have the NFL's easiest schedule of rest advantage. It is absurd how the NFL gave them 4 games down the stretch of the back half of the schedule against divisional opponents, and they have rest edges in all 4 of these games. There is no way that if you're trying to make the AFC East fair, that one team should have 4 games with rest edges late in the year against other NFC East opponents, but they do. The Jets are definitely that team that is being kind of set up to have a lot of success by the league, and I am fine with, for a show like this, drafting a bunch of teams, going with a team that I think could get the benefit of the doubt at any step along the way. And so as just solely because of that, even though I think that the Ravens could be the better team, I'm going to go ahead and take the Jets here.
I'll tell you that I'm going to make the chat room very happy. First of all, Joe Schmo, you're a real one. He pointed out it deleted the Broncos instead of the Bengals. I appreciate that. But the chat has been begging you to take the Chargers, and you didn't even mention them. You went straight from the Ravens to the Jets, begging you to take the Chargers. I'm going to take the Chargers. That's going to be my next pick. What I will say is that this is a bit of a game theory thing here. I actually think that the Ravens, I'm going to gift you back the Ravens in the next round. That's for you to take the next time, because I already have the Bengals. I don't want 2 in the division. But I mean, the Chargers, we're all on team free Justin Herbert. I think that it's actually going to happen this year. Justin Herbert had 6.42 air yards per attempt last year. That was below Jimmy Garoppolo. That was below Baker Mayfield. That was malpractice that he was asked to do that. His stats when throwing 15 more yards down the field throughout his career: 13 yards per attempt, 8.6% touchdown rate on throws 15 or more yards down. He needs to be throwing the ball down the field. I think the new coaching staff is going to have them do that. And the other thing I'll say about the Chargers is a lot of stuff went wrong for them last year. J.C. Jackson got hurt. We didn't see Bosa for a lot of the year, and they still went 10-7. I think this is a really good team. I think Herbert's going to be better. I think they're going to allow him to be better. And so I am big on the Chargers this year, and I'm all for the chat. You're welcome, chat, for me stepping up and taking the Chargers. So why didn't y'all take the Chargers? I suppose that's the question.
They played wrong division, man. Wrong division.
What about you, Warren?
I have my concerns about this defense, honestly. I don't know. I think this defense, they were one of the worst in the NFL against the run. I don't know if they're going to be any better in that category. Look at the first several games that they play. They got the Titans, they got the Browns, they got the Cowboys, the Dolphins are in there. These are teams that are capable of having some success on the ground, running the football. I do think that the offense is going to be improved, but I worry about the defensive side of the ball. And you should not have to say that when you've got a blue chip quarterback and you've got a defensive-minded head coach, which just tells you that I don't think Brandon Staley was the man for the job. I don't think he should have gotten the job. And if he can't get this defense playing with the talent that they have, if you look at the individual pieces, like the star players, the blue chip caliber of these names, they should be playing collectively a lot better than he has gotten them to play. And so I just want to see this week one game, man. Everybody talks about all these games. Week one for me, I really want to see Brandon Staley go up against Mike McDaniel. Does Mike McDaniel's Dolphins have an answer for what Brandon Staley did last year to slow them down, take away the middle of the field, all the in-breaking routes, take those away, play inside leverage, force everything to the outside where Tua was worse? Is that going to be the game plan, and will that work week one? I can't wait to see that game, but in my opinion, I just there's a lot of questions there about that defensive side of the ball. And Rich's point, they play in a division that's tough and a conference that's tough. I mean, now we're going to be at a stage, though, honestly, Ray, where we're going to have to pick these teams that are playing in those situations. So it's not like maybe a round from now I wouldn't have been looking to take the Chargers, but that's not my pick right now.
Yeah, I mean the Jets, notably not playing in a tough division, obviously. So yeah, that
I mean, I'm telling you right now, I took the Jaguars ahead of those two teams because of the division. I don't think that they're a better. I don't think they're a better team than the Chargers or the Jets at all.
Yeah, no, and I think that's fair, and that actually plays into. Actually, let me reset the draft real quick. We're through 3 rounds. Rich's team picking first because of his outstanding rock paper scissors skills. He has the Chiefs, 49ers, and Jaguars. Warren picking second has the Eagles, Cowboys, and Jets, 2 NFC East teams, and myself picking third. I have the Bills, Bengals, and Chargers. I'm going to add the Seattle Seahawks to that list for me, and it's for a similar reason as Rich was just talking about there. I think the Ravens are a better team than the Seattle Seahawks, and if I didn't have the Bengals, that would probably be who I'd be picking. But the other thing about the Seahawks is, they get to play in the NFC. They get to play in the division with 2 of the 5 worst rosters in the league. Is that fair with the Rams and the Cardinals? I mean, the Rams obviously are buoyed by their stars, but the rest of that is a mess. And the other thing about the Seahawks is I think there's been a lot of hand-wringing about Geno Smith. And, he wasn't as good down the stretch last year. Is he going to be able to maintain this? And those are all fair questions. But what I would say is I'd point you to what he did in 2021. And if you look at his 2021 numbers, obviously in a small sample size, they're basically identical to what he did last year. And I think that suggests that maybe what we saw last year wasn't as fluky as we think. Their defense is probably going to be a little bit better. And like I said, 10th easiest schedule. I think there are a lot of things working in the Seahawks' favor this year.
All right, I don't doubt that. I mean, they're one of the teams in the NFC that should see some wins here. And I'm going to go back to the AFC. I already tipped my hand on this one, but I'm going with the Baltimore Ravens.
He gave him to you. Just left him for you.
Yeah,
I just left them. They're there for you.
I'll just go ahead and clean up the scrap. The 2 teams that I'm taking thus far in the AFC are both teams that, we know the ceiling. We know the upside on a lot of these other teams in the AFC, right? Like the Bills, the Bengals, the Chiefs. Those were all drafted very early on, but they're all the premier teams. But we kind of know what we're getting from those teams. I'm going with upside on teams that were not as good last year, but because of substantial change this offseason, whether it was at the quarterback room and a couple of their players, or whether it was at the OC room, that have a little bit more upside. I'm worried about the Ravens defense, but I think that offensively this team is going to be a lot better. The other thing too is we really haven't seen in several years now what this team can do from a win total perspective if Lamar Jackson actually plays the full season. And so, sure, maybe history repeats itself and he goes out after week 12, and we don't get to see them the final 5 games, and they're struggling. But like, this is a team that I think has every opportunity to be really good and potentially take that next step. And guess what? What if the Cleveland Browns aren't as good as we think that they might be this year, and Deshaun Watson absolutely stinks? Like, there's a couple of other opportunities. You also, like, a slight benefit here, you get Joe Burrow early in the season. And I know everybody's talking about that Joe Burrow is going to be fine and there's not going to be any issue, but he does have a game week 1. So, like, keep this in consideration. Burrow plays week 1. He's going hard that game. What if, like, the rehab and everything isn't quite fast enough to be, like, quite at 100% week 2 when they play the Ravens? So I'm going to take the Ravens here.
Nice. I like it. Well, this is the point where you guys know I like to start getting weird in these drafts, start the game theory. And I'm going to take both the Saints and Falcons here. I'm going to double dip both. I'm going to take them both.
Wow.
They've got the 2 easiest schedules in the NFL. They both play in a division that I think is winnable for both. I think both offer high floors where I'm probably looking at eight wins each as a floor. And I guess, a lot of people maybe push back on that maybe for the Falcons, but I know you guys are big Falcons guys. You guys have talked about them on every podcast, but I like both of these teams a lot for this exercise of terms of winning games. I do think the Saints still have a better roster than the Falcons. Overall, I think they have a better quarterback than the Falcons. But I also like both these team schedules, and I'll just take both bites at the apples here and give me both the Saints and Falcons.
I can't believe that a noted Falcons hater like you would reach this far ahead of two people who love the Falcons. Very clearly have been open about how much they love the Falcons, that you would steal them from us in this way. It's just, it's unbelievable.
You know what that means? Yeah. What's that?
This means now officially that the Atlanta Falcons are the Sharp Football Analysis Team of the Year. Like, there's no doubt about it. Every single one of us have investment into the Atlanta Falcons this season. There's no doubt about it financially. In Rich's case, with this, like, I got some futures. I've got some on the team. I've got some player prop futures as well. So we are all going to be pulling hardcore for the Atlanta Falcons. For my next pick, I'm going back to the NFC, and I'm going with a team that I think is certainly favored to win their division, and that's the Detroit Lions. I'll just keep it short. And I don't love the Lions. I'm not buying all the hype around the Lions to, like, make a deep playoff run. I still think that this team has a lot of holes, a lot of issues, but I love their offensive coordinator. I know Rich doesn't think that that's as big of a deal. I love their offensive coordinator, and I love their offensive line. I think they're going to be able to run the football a little bit. And I think this is a team that always plays hard late in games to get that out of their coach. And I think this is a team that's probably going to give me right around their win total this year. And so I'm fine with taking them right here. I think they have a high enough floor to give me that.
Yeah, I've expressed my doubts about the hype around the Lions. I also doubt that the NFC North is maybe as bad as people think it is. Their defense, they signed some people. They, drafted a linebacker in the first round. Still have questions about that. Even when they were playing well, when they went 8-2 down the stretch, I believe their defense was 5th worst in EPA allowed. So they, I have a lot of questions about that team, and I think that they're the favorites for the NFC North. I think that that's fair, but I do think that there might be a lot of value in some other teams. Y'all put me in a precarious position here with the people you've left off the board. I thought the Saints would be here for me. That's who I was really looking forward to.
You haven't done one of these yet. So, like, there's always, like, a team that goes, like, way early because, like, the Colts or something that, like, just because you try to buy the value.
Well, I think you should definitely draft the Colts in the next turn. I think that that's something that you should do. So it's put me into a tough position that I'm going to have to draft a team that I don't even like, simply because there's a bit of a win total fall off here, and I'm going to trust Vegas, and that is I'm going to draft the Miami Dolphins. I kind of talked a little bit about them. I do think their defense is going to be very good. I have concerns about that offense. How is it going to translate if we go up against tougher defenses? They face the, I believe, toughest run defense given 2022 efficiency numbers, the second toughest set of pass defenses using 2022 efficiency numbers. that's a concern for me. We'll see how it goes. Obviously, you have the Tua Tagovailoa concern with his health. Is Mike White better than what they ran out last year? I don't know. I guess we'll have to see. So there are a lot of concerns there with the Dolphins. They play in a tough division. They might be the third best team in the division, depending on what you think of the Jets. And so, yeah, there's some concerns there. And the other team I'm going to take is a team that Warren just brought up, and that's the Browns. I think that the Browns, if you just looked at them, a lot like the 49ers, if you just looked at their roster, I think that we would think of the Browns more highly. And if it's possible that Deshaun Watson comes back and is closer to what he was in Houston, then this team I think is going to be pretty good. The problem is the Deshaun Watson we saw last year was not very good in the games that he played. He was 24th over that span in EPA per play among quarterbacks. He was not great last year. Can he be better this year? Training camp reports haven't been ideal in that respect. But I look at this roster, I think this roster is pretty good. And so maybe they're kind of like, the lower tier, the off-brand 49ers, and that if the quarterback plays well, maybe they're going to show up and maybe be a little better than we.
Yeah, they've got look, this is a team, they've spent so much on the offense. Their roster is so rich that if they don't win with what they've got coming next year, once Watson's cap increases, I mean, like, this could be curtains for Kevin Stefanski. He's got to figure out a way, because they're not getting rid of Watson. So if he can't make an offense work for Deshaun Watson to have some success, they will bring in somebody who might be able to do that. Whether that guy succeeds, who knows? But this will definitely be the scapegoat here. My next pick is an interesting one, because I am going about this pick solely from the perspective that I'm higher on them in the division than other people are, and I bet them on the futures market. And I also think that if I don't take them here, they won't be here once Rich is done. So, Rich, you tell me in a second if you would have taken this team. And maybe I'm wrong, and I could have had them next pick. But the Green Bay Packers.
Oh. Yeah, I was definitely going to take the Packers with one of these two picks.
Okay. So
I considered the Packers over the Browns. I didn't know it. I got to learn. You're right, Rich. I need to learn the flows of this thing.
Yeah.
I didn't know if the Packers would come back. But part of the reason I'm not as high on the Lions is I think that people are sleeping on the Packers, how good their roster is, and what happens if Jordan Love is even fine, and kind of what this looks like.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you some of the things that we're hearing about Jordan Love is I don't want to say he's Aaron Rodgers-esque, but like the way that he's throwing some of the deep balls isn't what Aaron Rodgers was doing last year. Let's just put it that way. Rodgers was off on things last year. Obviously, he had the injury. But if we still have a very solid run game, which I expect, and we get Jordan Love playing better than Rodgers was, who was like by the end of the season, like this guy, everything was out of his hands in less than 2.5 seconds. He had the shortest time to throw. He threw the highest rate of passes behind the line of scrimmage. I think like everything was just like simple, get it out, stay healthy because I hate my team. I want to get out of town. And now we got Jordan Love. And I kind of also think that, and we got to speed it up here a little bit probably, but I kind of think that the stress is off some of these other receivers, like the stress of playing with Rodgers and thinking, okay, if I don't run this route perfectly, he's going to get mad because he's the vet, and all those young guys there last year, that stress is totally gone now. And this team can actually have a little bit of fun with Love. I think it's an interesting pick. I'm glad that Rich would have taken him, so I was able to get him before he did.
Yeah. There was three teams that I was willing to pick, and I knew I was going to get two of them. But the Packers, I've been high on them as well. I think that there's value for them in the futures as well. I'm going to stay in the same division, and I'll take the Bears. Again, a bet on the schedule, a bet on the youth, a bet on a jump. Right, this is a team that won 3 games last year, and we're taking them in the 6th round. I don't remember what exact pick this is. What is it, pick 18? Something like that. But I look at the Bears. They've got the schedule. I think Justin Fields is going to be able to tap into some of the passing upside that he left Ohio State with. Obviously, there's a cognitive effort to improve the offensive line and the scheme over what they had last season. I think they are going to be a little more aggressive than they were last year. Listen, any team's going to be more aggressive than the Bears were last year. Big questions on the defensive side of the ball for sure. But also, just like I said, we're 18 picks in, and I'm going to bet on the schedule and stay in the NFC. And the other team is just like if I'm not going to go broke here, and I'll just take the Steelers, right? Like, I'm definitely not going broke on the Steelers. They've literally won 8 games or more every year Tomlin has been there. I also think, anyways, the Steelers made pretty seismic changes defensively. I think this defense is going to be a lot better. They just play in the wrong division. They're probably still the 4th best team in their division, but it's literally just at this point of the draft, more of a floor-based pick than a ceiling one.
Yeah, that's
if you go into the draft kit, Rich, you've written a lot of interesting stuff about offensive regression candidates. And that's something that really turned me around a bit on the Steelers, is looking at kind of their offense last year and thinking, even if, and we talked about this on a podcast at some point, even if we have base rate inflation, they're probably going to score more touchdowns. And that's without even considering improvement from George Pickens, improvement from Kenny Pickett, getting Pickens more involved than they were last year. So this offense could definitely be better. Maybe, I don't know, giving the better running back in the backfield more carries, something like that. So they're an interesting team for sure.
I was just on, this is going to take up all my time that I've talked about my other team, but whatever. I was just on in Pittsburgh radio, whatever their flagship radio station is there in Pittsburgh, KDE, I don't even know, like 2 hours ago, talking about Kenny Pickett, talking about the production inside the red zone, talking about the pass rate. I shared this when I was betting on George Pickens touchdown receptions, and that is that last year with Matt Canada, this team had the number 26 pass rate inside of the 15-yard line. And the year before that with Ben Roethlisberger, same offensive coordinator, Matt Canada, number 1 highest pass rate, something like 65% pass inside the 15. I believe it's like on early downs or whatnot. But once they went this year, they went way more to the run. I think they're going to be throwing the ball more there. They're going to have more efficiency because they can't be any worse than they were down inside the red zone when they were passing the ball. I think maybe they are going to get some of these explosive plays. It's one of the reasons I really wanted to grab the Steelers. I was really hoping that they would have slipped here. I wonder if this is the thing that is going to swing the draft if I could have gotten the Steelers, because I feel pretty good about who I picked to date.
Well, we're in it now.
We're in it now.
Yeah,
we're in it now that the Steelers are gone, because there's a lot of teams that are left on my board here whose strength.
So Ray doesn't know this though. Ray actually doesn't know. So Ray, the last 2 years, the last 2 teams selected have been amazing picks. 2 years ago, the Bengals were the last team picked and they went to the Super Bowl. And last year, the Seahawks were the last team picked and they were amazing value. So you find some gems down here. I think Warren took the Giants. Warren took the Giants last year. They were a huge value for him.
Yeah. And that was a no-brainer for me. I think I'm going to go Giants again. I almost was going to go Vikings. I'll go Giants again. What the hell? One of the most difficult schedules. They're going to regress a little bit. But for whatever reason, I think that their floor is a little bit higher than some people think. They just added just a dynamic player for a 7th round pick. Jefferson, what was it? Why is it slipping my mind? Simmons? Who they just had from the card, Isaiah Simmons. And I think that this is going to be a team that has a high floor. They got to figure out a lot offensively, but I'll go with the Giants here.
Well, I think I'll take the only NFC North team left standing, right? The one that won the division last year. Is that true? Is that the Minnesota Vikings? I'll go ahead and I'll take the Minnesota Vikings.
4 Vikings from last year.
Obviously, that was one of the more paper thin 13-4s that we've ever seen. They were 4.68 wins under their expected total, the Pythagorean total. Over that total. So obviously there's a little bit of smoke and mirrors to that record. So we'll see what happens. Their defense, I still don't think it's very good. It might be worse, but I mean they've got Justin Jefferson. They've got Kirk Cousins. The running game probably can't be worse than it was last year. And we've brought up all the teams in this division and how, there's upside to every team in this division, but there's also downside to every team in this division. So maybe we're just overthinking this and the Vikings are going to come back and win the division again. So I'll go ahead and take the Vikings. So let's reset it here a little bit. Rich, picking first, Chiefs, 49ers, Jaguars, Saints, Falcons, Bears, Steelers through 7 rounds. Warren, Eagles, Cowboys, Jets, Ravens, Lions, Packers, and Giants. And then myself with the clearly best team here: Bills, Bengals, Chargers, Seahawks, Dolphins, Browns, and Vikings. Let's move it on into the home stretch. This is getting I don't like the decisions that y'all are forcing me to make here. I wanted this to just be 5 rounds, so I didn't have to think about how much I liked any of these teams.
We go deep here, Ray. We go deep to the darkness.
I am going to.
I mean, this is where
I'm going to go with the Broncos. I'm going to go with the Broncos, and I have other teams that maybe I should have gone with. I'm going to take an upside swing here with the Broncos. I'll tell you, what we've seen in the preseason has not been great. It's not been ideal. I'm really worried that, we let Russ cook and now he's just cooked. I'm a little bit concerned about what we're going to see from him this year. They lost a little bit on defense, so we'll see, but they probably improved a lot in the coaching staff. The division's tough. This deep, you're trying to make cases. But I would say that with Russell Wilson, if he can get back to being Russell Wilson, with Sean Payton, with the receivers they will have if Jerry Jeudy ends up being healthy, the running back situation, they improve the line, the secondary that they have, this team could be really good if it all hits. We're just hoping that it actually hits for us this year.
No doubt about that. I do want to mention before I drop my next pick, a couple things to reboot if you aren't with us at the top. If you were, maybe this will reinforce the reasoning to go and grab your copy of the 2023 football preview. Use code ANGLES15. You will save $15 off of this. The fastest way to get ready for the upcoming season. Everybody here worked on it. I got highlights through it. I got sticky notes all through it. I keep it right here. Other thing, go grab Rich Hribar's draft kit. Draft kit is an invaluable resource. You can get that and the book for only $1. Each of them for only $1. There's promos on the website on each purchase page to sign up for Underdog. If you don't already have it, you can get the draft kit for $1. You can get my book for $1. Otherwise, they're the best investment that you will make for your draft or for the season is to get either of those options there. And also, of course, make sure you guys are subscribed to our YouTube channel here. Just search YouTube for Warren Sharp, subscribe, and turn on your notifications. My pick is going to be the New England Patriots. I don't love it at all, but I'm going to do it. And it's partially like some of the other picks that I've had, which is there could be upside actually having an offensive coordinator in here. And if there is some upside having an offensive coordinator in the building, then I want to be part of it. I think this team's going to struggle early, but there's some winnable games late, and I'll go with the Patriots.
Nice, people. Yeah, we'll keep this thing moving. Let's see. I'll stick with the NFC. I'll take the Panthers at this point, just to bet on the division. Bet on Bryce Young being an improvement over what they had last year at the quarterback position, at least the last 2 years as well. Just hopefully I have a floor here. And then I guess I'm going to take the Titans for the same reasons. Because of the Steelers factor, right? Like, is Vrabel going to let this team be terrible? Also, maybe there's a thinner path to them being successful, but like it does exist. Like it does exist that they could win this division, right? Like it still does. The offensive line is trash.
I bet on them to win the division. I mean, I thought there was enough value on this team to win the division. So they're unlikely to, but that's why you bet the long shots, because there is a long shot and a payoff. And I think that there's a path for them to, for sure.
Yeah, there's definitely a path here where after their first 6 games, which are absolutely dreadful, they're not favored in any of them, that maybe they make a move because they have their bye week in week 7, and maybe they just try to say, all right, we're going to reset this thing and take a look at one of these young quarterbacks as maybe we're staring down the gun barrel of having a high draft pick. But there also is a scenario where like this team is competitive. Like this is one of the few teams that have given the Chiefs like some hell dates. Like the last couple of years, they almost beat the Chiefs with Malik Willis starting last year, which is absolutely wild. The front 7 is still really good defensively. So we have that to bank on, and we just hope that Tannehill doesn't kill us and they play some close games at this point. But they've won 7 or more games every year Vrabel's been there. So we'll just take them at this point and move on.
All right, back to me, and I am bucking strength of schedule once again. I took the team that plays the most difficult schedule with my last pick, the New England Patriots. I'm taking the team that plays the second most difficult schedule, and that is the Raiders. I mean, this team, I think Josh McDaniels is firmly on the hot seat. If something happens here, they have a new quarterback, but guess what? Maybe Jimmy G doesn't throw interceptions and play terribly inside of the red zone like Derek Carr is prone to do. Maybe he has some success there. They've got a good receiving core. You just got to get some protection. I don't know what's going to happen. Not enough words, not enough reason to say enough words about this team. I'll just shove them disgustedly on my roster here.
What are the odds we could have got before this podcast, after everything you've tweeted about Josh McDaniels? What are the odds we could have gotten before this podcast that the Raiders would end up on your squad?
I've got 3 teams. I'm looking at my roster now. I got 3 teams that I am like just not having anything to do with them on the futures market. In certain cases, I bet against them. We're talking like the Jets, the Patriots, and the Raiders. I don't want anything to do with these teams right now, and they're all on my team. Now, there's some other teams on your guys' rosters that I am down on as well, but nature of the draft, don't want to. I think they're going to be bad, but maybe they're not as bad as I think, and they'll help me out here.
Well, I have to say, there's one easy pick for me here, and that is the Washington Commanders, who another team that Warren, you're out there just making enemies. Well, on the Twitter streets with the Washington Commanders. We'll see. I mean, Ron Rivera, it hasn't been going great. They did get a new offensive coordinator in, and Eric Bieniemy. Sam Howell, we'll see what there's some upside there. Their defense is actually pretty good. So I'm just kind of taking a shot. They're in the NFC. They're in the NFC East, where, it's not ideal because you're playing with the Eagles and Cowboys, but their schedule's not too bad. So I'm just going to take a shot on the Commanders and hope for the best. After that, I mean, what do we do here? Like, what?
This is the money round. This is the money round.
This is throwing darts. Like, there is nothing here that I am excited.
Luckily,
about.
There's only 5 teams left.
It's not a coincidence that these are the 5 teams I had very clearly at the bottom of my list as well. I think that it's pretty clear here that these are the 5 worst. I guess I'm going to take the Colts because of the division they're in. Because of the fact that they have, an exciting young quarterback. We'll see what he's able to do, if he's able to kind of be a better version of what Justin Fields was last year, and maybe we'll see what he's able to do. But I don't feel great about it. And one of the things with the Colts, and I've talked about this before on this podcast, is their transition from one of the better top to bottom rosters in the league to one of the worst top to bottom rosters in the league has really been something. Like, that is not something I expected to see, or I thought we would say maybe 2 or 3 years ago. But here we are.
I don't disagree. This is a team. You just picked the 2 teams. I was talking to a coach about these 2 teams earlier today, who they're just playing. They had been just playing like musical chairs with quarterback, right? Like just find some mercenary quarterback that can come in and try to win, and lo and behold, that solution doesn't work, because how often are free agent quarterbacks available that are actually going to help your team win? If the other team didn't want them, probably not that good anymore. Tom Brady, random exception. Even like Matthew Stafford, when he won the Super Bowl with the Rams, he did not have a great season, especially late in that season. He was problematic. Then they got back on track for the postseason. I'll go with those Rams.
They were the 2nd pick last year.
Crazy. Who were you going to take? Did we take anybody who you would have taken, Rich? Always curious.
I would have taken a shot on the Rams there as the Mr. Relevant pick for sure. Even though everything is, you go ahead, you just talk about him, because everything you're going to say, I probably was going to say.
No, I mean, look, there's a great chance that the coach is fine with not having a great year. This roster has gone from they have dead money. They're spending way less on this roster than they did. I mean, they're all their crimes to build up what they did to win a Super Bowl are now all those bill collectors are coming to get their due. And the Rams roster is just gutted compared to what it once was. It's thin. It's not great. but that's why they're down here at the bottom of the barrel. And there is a chance that, you know, they move on from Stafford. There is a chance that he's old, playing, you know, not at 100% already, dealing with like prior injuries. Same thing with Cooper Kupp, and they just decide whatever for the season. So that's a chance as well. So
yeah, I mean,
Are you excited?
What's that?
Excited about? Go ahead. Talk about the Rams. I wanted to ask
Oh no,
you how
I was
excited you were
like,
about the
on top
options
of
you
all
had.
the Rams, because I actually think, like, you know, betting on, you know, McVay and Stafford, like, because they were competitive to end last year. Like, they gave Seattle a couple really tough games. They obviously were the team that was the nail in the coffin for Nathaniel Hackett. I mean, they scored 50 points on the Broncos. I think it was Christmas Day too. But they were alive. So like, you're getting, you know, a little bit value on just betting on McVay and Stafford at that point. But they got actually just crushed on the schedule. Like the league did the Rams no favors. Like they play like 4 teams coming off of a bye. Their rest advantage is crazy. It's like on top of everything, like the league dealt them a crappy hand. Like they couldn't even throw him a bone.
no.
I'll close it up. You know, a couple years ago when I won, I took the entire NFC East when they were trash, and like that was just my thing. I was like, I'll just take all of them. So I think I'll just take the Bucks and I'll have the whole NFC South. And it's like having the opening run of Monopoly, right? Like I've got all the purples and light blues. You guys come down and see me and pay that rent.
You think so? First of all, the Bucks are. It was really fun. I was talking about the Jets yesterday with Ryan on the podcast. We talked about receiver over under. So go check that out in the feed. And if you looked at the Jets last year, their quarterbacks finished 38th, 39th, and 40th in completion rate over expected. There are only 42 quarterbacks that qualified for that stat. And one of the quarterbacks that finished under the Jets was Baker Mayfield, who finished 42nd in completion rate over expected. And I mean, the Bucks are one of those teams. I think the Titans are kind of in this, although I like the Titans a little more. The Rams are kind of in this, where you look at those teams and you go, this roster is, you know, this team doesn't have a quarterback, or if they do have a quarterback, this team maybe isn't good, but they're kind of in between. They don't really know what they want to do. In the Bucks case, they don't have a quarterback, but their roster's actually kind of fine. But how are they going to do it with Baker Mayfield, even in that division? I don't see it. It's going to be really tough for them.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason they're the 30th pick.
That leaves us
concur.
That leaves us with 2 teams that weren't drafted. The 2
Texans,
teams I probably
the Texans have
would
not
have
been
guessed.
drafted the last 3 years. I don't believe. I think it's 3 years in a row. No one's taken the Texans.
Justifiably so.
You know, it's interesting. I think the Texans probably have a better argument than the Bucks, and probably not the Rams, because the Rams have, you know, Kupp and Darnold and all of those guys. But I think that the Texans probably have a better bet than the Buccaneers. Maybe I probably would have I'd have ended their drought if it was the last pick. But I think we're all confirmed. The 32nd team on all of our lists here was the Arizona Cardinals. Am I right about that?
For me, yeah, for sure. I mean, this team, I think they're plus 220 right now to have the worst record in the NFL. That's probably worth a little something. They are dumping players for picks. You know, they're going after other teams' quarterbacks. They made 3 moves on their roster today alone. I really want to see what happens if they deal Buda Baker. You know what this season's all about, right? Like if they dump Buda, like this is we already know. But I already think it's headed that direction. There's no reason why it shouldn't. We knew this for a while now, but seeing them actually do what they did today, I think just really calls it out. And this is a team, I mean, I think their win total is 4.5. That even potentially has a little bit of value going under 4.5, simply because if you look at their schedule, it's going to be tough. Even if they, I'm pulling up their schedule now, looking at, can they win 5 games? Even if they sweep the Rams, and they got this nice little spot here in the middle of the season where they got the Falcons and the Texans as well. But let's pretend they sweep the Rams. They're taking money against them week 1. Washington Commanders have been bet on. That line was like 6.5. It's now up to 7. Money's coming in on the Commanders. So if they drop that week 1 game to the Commanders, where are they getting 5 wins on this schedule. Even if they sweep the Rams and beat the Texans, that's 3. You need 2 more wins. Is it a dome team from Arizona going into Chicago week 16 when like losses are going to be very valuable for that top draft pick and winning that game? The next closest game that they're likely to win is like against the Seahawks week 18. I can't see any reason why a team that's going to be potentially as bad as the Cardinals, even if they don't have the chance to win the number 1 seed, number 1 pick rather in the draft, the 32nd seed, I guess, for them to win that game, because it's draft position at that point, and they're going to be up at the top and maybe lock themselves into the first overall. So that's not even a game. I find it hard to find 5 wins on their the roster. Maybe they win against Seattle in Seattle. Like, we think Seattle's going to be good though, but that's like 4 right there. Where's the 5th? This is going to be tough for them.
Do you think it's going to be interesting with Kyler if they're in contention for the number 1 pick, and we're pretty sure that number 1 pick would be Caleb Williams, and they try to ship Kyler out? Then does he have some Lovie Smith like motivation late in the season if he comes back healthy to win games and ruin that for them? That might be a fun little.
Which is why the team would be smart not to play him, right? Like at all this year. I don't know if that's their strategy here, but if they start off poorly, what is in the team's best interest? The team. It's not to play, and you can't force players to play poorly or to tank games. You can't even at times force coaches, clearly with Lovie Smith. But organizationally, you can decide which players are going to be up or down for these games. And I just think that they'd be in their best interest to not have them up there.
Great. So for those of you listening on the podcast feed, the Sharp Angles podcast feed, let's just reset here with the teams. Rich, picking out of the number 1 spot, had the Chiefs, 49ers, Jaguars, Saints, Falcons, Bears, Steelers, Panthers, Titans, Buccaneers. Warren, picking second, had the Eagles, Cowboys, Jets, Ravens, Lions, Packers, Giants, Patriots, Raiders, and Rams. And then myself picking third and very clearly winning this draft, I have the Bills, Bengals, Chargers, Seahawks, Dolphins, Browns, Vikings, Broncos, Commanders, and Colts. So if you're listening on the podcast, we had a nice live stream going. We had that all up on the screen. The other thing that you get if you go to our YouTube page, just search Warren Sharp on YouTube, subscribe, and you'll get the notifications for live. You can get into the chat and you can ask questions. We're going to answer the questions that you put in the chat. So this isn't even a fantasy football podcast, Rich, but we got a fantasy football question. We're going to answer it. This is from Tom Dunn. Keeper league. Keep Josh Jacobs or A.J. Brown in the second round. He's already keeping Justin Jefferson for the first round. And why? He asked, Rich. So what's your answer to this question?
Yeah, I mean, I'm keeping Arthur Juwan. I'm starting with those 2 wide receivers. Josh Jacobs for me was, even before all of this, was kind of a stay away guy. You're paying for a career season, which always is kind of like a red flag, right? And I think he's been an underrated player for fantasy football, but you are paying a premium for his career year. And then also when you look at the history of players that had as many touches of Josh Jacobs, how they perform the following year, there's almost an immediate recoil on their performance. So give me Arthur Juwan attached to the better team, better offense. And starting out with Justin Jefferson and Arthur Juwan is already a unique build because not many teams get to start out with those 2 players.
Absolutely. So there you are. If you come to the live streams on YouTube, search Warren Sharp on YouTube, like and subscribe, you will get your questions.
Rich, when are you
it.
doing your next draft chat with everybody?
Tomorrow afternoon.
So guys, if you're listening to this now, here, or tomorrow morning, Rich does a live stream for anybody who bought the draft kit. You can come in there and ask any of these questions that you want, and he will answer them directly. Pepper him with 10 questions. If you want to cycle through it, he'll get to all your questions. So if you already know where you're picking, you can ask him stuff about that. If you want to ask about this player over that player, this team over that team, top 3 wide receivers, like whatever you want. Ask him questions about his rankings. Ask him questions about his tiers. Ask him whatever you want. What's the best type of questions that people can ask you, Rich? Because that's a good idea.
Well, the best thing is you don't have to be live for this either. Although I do them live, you can put a question in the chat, and this lives on our website for people that bought the draft kit and are part of the team. You can go back and just watch it later and see how I answered your question. You don't even have to be there live. You can go in right now and drop the question if you feel the need to.
Again, this live draft chat is going to be on Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern. So if you're listening to this before that, you can go. There's a page. You can just search live Q&A Rich Hribar on Google. It'll take you right to the page. If you're a subscriber to the draft kit, the link will be right there for you. If you're not, you can go ahead and subscribe right from that page as well. And I would recommend it. We have a lot in there. Well, that's it for us. We got through it. 30 teams drafted, 2 teams left on the sideline. We're sorry, Texans and Cardinals. We'll see how that goes next year. We're going to be back again next week on the Shark Bengals podcast with a lot of stuff. We're going to have a lot of things coming out next week. So make sure you stay on this feed. Make sure you go to YouTube and like and subscribe, and we'll talk to you next time.